The following video provides the instructions necessary for an extended exercise in SAP. The objective is the exercise is to perform all the transactions necessary for the full cash-to-cash for the production company. The video shows how to plan, procure, produce and sell boxes of one product. It shows all the transactions including those performed by the simulator in the ERP Sim distribution game. In this video, we will buy and sell boxes of product 20-F01, the box of nut muesli. Each student is asked to replicate the processes for a different product. Prior to the exercise, you have been assigned a team letter, denoted by the $sign, and a user number, denoted by the pound key. Use your team letter and user number to determine which product you should use for this exercise. In the process diagram shown here, some processes are gray colored. In SAP, these are alternative commands that can be used to complete the process. They will be explained later. Before doing the exercise, print the following job aid. The job aid contains the step-by-step instructions for each transaction covered in this video. Listen to the video and stop it whenever you like. With the video and the job aid, you should have no problem performing all the SAP transactions included in the exercise. The exercise should give you a unique experience into the internal working of an enterprise system. The first sub-process is the procurement planning process. It consists of producing a purchase order, or PO, to buy the necessary raw materials to produce 1,000 boxes of nut muesli. The process diagram represents the process as implemented by SAP. We will examine the process in more detail in the next minutes. The first step consists of creating the independent requirement. It specifies the planned requirement for a finished product. One can interpret the independent requirement as a desired level of inventory when the production process is completed. The forecast levels must be set at the beginning and can be modified whenever market conditions change. The video shows how to create an independent requirement for product XX-F01. To do the same for your product, log into SAP. Use the login instructions provided by your instructor. Once logged in, go in the user menu. In the user menu, open the logistics folder and the production planning folder, and finally the material forecast folder. Enter MD61 in the command field or choose it from the list. The first screen is a selection screen. Click in the material field and enter your product code. In this example, XX-F01. By entering a product code, you will only be able to plan the independent requirements for that specific product. If you wish to plan all your 6 products at the same time, click on the product group field and then enter your product group. In this example, it would have been the XX-F. The F stands for finished products. Once this is done, click on the Enter key or the green tick on the top left of your screen. The system will pull the information corresponding to your product selection or a list if you chose the Enter a product group. The system generates a table. Your product should appear the top left the table. The 6th column is used to enter the sales forecast for the current month. The 7th column is used to enter the forecast and inventory target for the next month and so on for the future months. In the table, enter the desired amount, 1,000 boxes, for your product. In this example, product XX-F01. It is important that you remember when you are using the simulator to always put your forecasts in the column corresponding to the next month. This is the 7th column as shown here. Do not put any values in the current month column. For this exercise, enter the quantity 1,000. Once it is done, click on the Save button represented by a diskette. This will save the information in the company's database. You have now created an independent requirement for your product. As illustrated in the process diagram, the database independent requirement has been updated. In order to view the result, there is a special report that shows the existing documents attached to a specific product. It is called the stock and requirement list. So let's open the stock and requirement list for your product. We can use the transaction code MD04 listed in the menu. Open the shop floor control folder and the order folder. Select the transaction MD04 in the user menu. Alternatively, you can also type directly the command code in the command field and then press enter. Let us use this option by writing MD04 and press enter. In the selection screen, enter next to the material line your product code. Next, click on enter. What appears on the screen is information about your product. The first line contains the current level of stock. Currently it is 0 for product XX-F01. The other lines list the documents relevant for the product. As you can see, an independent requirement for 1,000 boxes has been created for the product, leaving us with an available quantity of -1,000 boxes. As we proceed through the exercise, we will use this report again and update the data in order to track the evolution of the stock and requirement list. So keep this window open. You can open a new session by clicking on the button highlighted by the green rectangle. At any time, you can open up to 6 different SAP sessions. Because this is a manufacturing process, let us also see the stock and requirement list for the raw material. In this case, the nut muesli box of cereal will contain nuts that have to be ordered. In this example, the product code for nuts is XX-R01. In the simulation, the products containing the letter in their code are raw materials. Then press enter. As you can see, there are no independent requirements for the nuts. The quantity of raw material required is dependent on the quantity of finished products entered in our forecast. It is thus called the dependent requirement. It does not appear yet. The next step in the planning process is to run the MRP. The MRP stands for Material Resource Planning. It is an automated tool that helps generate planning documents according to requirements and resources. The MRP takes the independent requirements from our forecast of finished products and generate plan orders to produce more boxes if necessary. To produce our boxes of muesli, we will need raw materials. The MRP extracts the current level of the raw materials inventory and the quantity already ordered in the current purchase orders. With this information, it calculates the difference and creates a requisition if necessary. In our example, nothing has been ordered yet, nothing is in transit and our inventory are at 0. In our case, a requisition for nuts, wheat, oat, bags and cardboard boxes will be created. In the simulation, the requisition will be pre-assigned to a pre-selected vendor. In this exercise, we will have to assign it manually. In order to launch the MRP calculation, click on the transaction MD01 in the user menu, or type the transaction code MD01 in the command field. First screen contains the MRP control parameters. These should be Northeast UPL 1313. These are the best parameters for the purpose of the ERP Sim Business simulation. Click on Enter. The numbers will turn red. This means the system is asking you to verify the MRP control parameters. Click on Enter again. The system will ask you again for a confirmation. To understand why the system asks for these multiple confirmations, one must recall that the system has been created for very large and complex companies. For these, a MRP calculation may take some computing resources and create a large set of planning documents. One does not run the MRP lightly. In our case, we are ready to proceed. Click on Enter one more time. You should have pressed Enter a total of 3 times. The system will create the required planning documents. In the report produced by the MRP run, notice the creation of one plan order to later launch a production of nut muesli. You also see that 6 purchase requisitions were created to purchase the raw materials we need. Finally, dependent requirements to assign those raw materials to our future production order were created. Our task is complete. Go back to the stock and requirement list window for the nuts raw material. If the stock and requirement window is the one that you left opened, you will notice that there is no mention of a requisition. We need to refresh the list to see how it has been changed. If needed, click on the refresh button. Here we see the updated stock and requirement list. Notice that we have 2 additional lines. One refers to the purchase requisition for 200 kilos of nut needed to produce our 1,000 boxes of muesli. The second line is a dependent requirement stating that the 200 kilos that will be ordered are already used in a planned production order and thus removing them from inventory. If they would have been left available in inventory, another order may have planned to use them. This would create a shortage. With the dependent requirement in place, you now see that the actual available quantity is back to 0. If another production order is created, the system will know to order more. We move now to the last step of the procurement planning process, the creation of the purchase order. If a new requisition has been created, we need to convert it to a purchase order. While a requisition is a planning document that can be changed or deleted without problem, a purchase order once sent is a formal contract between your company and your vendor, and it cannot be changed or deleted. In the command field, use the transaction code ME59 and alternatively, in the user menu, click on Logistics. Then on Materials Management. Then on Purchase Order. On Create. Finally, double-click on Automatically via Purchase Requisition. The selection screen contains already all the information necessary. You do not need to change anything. Simply click on the transaction using the Execute button represented by a small clock. The system will convert the requisitions, if any, into purchase orders. All requisitions pre-assigned to a vendor will be regrouped in one purchase order. In the manufacturing game, there are 2 vendors. One selling the food products and the second one, wrapping materials such as boxes and bags. Before going back to the user menu, note the PO number for future use, in this example 4500000148. Take note that if you run the above transaction when there is no requisition, you get a message on the bottom left of your screen informing you that no valid requisition were found. To follow your purchase orders, you can use ZME2N. Enter ZME2N in the command field, or in the user menu. Click on Information System. Then on Materials Management. Then on ERPs and Purchase Order Tracking. This report allows you to verify that raw materials have been properly ordered and, once delivered, their delivery date will appear in the Delivered column. This completes the procurement planning process. This process must be performed by the team in the ERP sim manufacturing game. As boxes are sold in the market and the stocks are depleting, the planner need to rerun the MRP in order to create new requisition and cover them into purchase orders. If this is not done, your company will quickly find itself without raw materials to produce and stock to sell. In this video, we will see how to confirm the good reception using the SAP transaction MiGo. This is part of the procurement execution process. If the received goods match the corresponding purchase order, the warehouse workers confirm the good reception into the system and store the product in the proper storage location. Go back to the user menu to confirm the good reception. This is not a transaction that must be performed manually in the simulation game. The good confirmation is performed by the simulator. In order to launch the required transaction, type the transaction code, MiGo, in the command field or click on Logistics. Then on Materials Management. then on goods receipt. Then double-click on goods movement. To confirm reception, type in the purchase order number. In this example, we are going to use 4500000161. If you do not remember your purchase order number, you can use transaction ZME2N to have access to your purchase order report. Let us see that report. In this column, you see all your purchase orders. Type your PO number in the highlighted box. For the rest of this transaction to work properly, the Material Description tab must be closed. If it is opened, you can close it by clicking on the icon left of the Material tab. Enter the storage location for all materials. For raw materials, the storage location is 88. Now click the check boxes in the OK column. If a checkbox remains gray and cannot be clicked, you must have left the material description opened. Click on the icon left of the Material tab to close it. To make sure you entered all the information correctly, you can either click on the green check or press Enter. If all is in order, save the changes. We will now see the effects of the goods received on our stocks. Enter transaction MD07. If necessary, enter your plant and then click the green check or press Enter. You now see that all 5 raw materials that were in our purchase order are now in stock. Let us try the second report. Go back to the main user menu. Enter transaction ZMB52. The report is a custom report created for the ERP Sim game. In addition to giving you information of your product's stock, it has the advantage of giving you your total stocks and your maximal capacity. This information can be very useful to avoid paying very expensive additional storage fees. This video shows how to post a vendor's invoice. After the good reception, we need to post the vendor's invoice. This is an accounting transaction and it creates an entry in the general ledger. Go back to the user menu. Use the transaction code MIRO to launch the post invoice transaction. Enter MIRO in the command field or click on Logistics. Then Materials Management. Then Invoice. Finally, double-click on Enter Incoming Invoice. First, enter the current real date in the line Invoice Date. In order to enter a date, you can either click on the icon right of the Invoice Date field, or simply by double-clicking in the empty field. A calendar will appear. Today's date will appear in bold. Click on the current date or simply click on Enter, and in both cases the current date will appear in the field. Next, enter the purchase order number in the highlighted box. In this example, the number is 4500000161. Use the PO number that you have noted before. Open the menu and select Goods Service Items plus Planned Delivery Costs. Select Goods and Service Items plus Planned Delivery Costs. Click on Enter. Additional information relevant to the PO will appear on the screen. In the box Amount, enter the correct amount from the PO. This is the number that appears next to the balance on the top right of the screen. Note the amount to be paid. This amount will be useful later. Click on Enter. The balance should now be 0. If so, we are ready to save. Click on the Save icon. A financial document should be created. The number of this financial document appears in the bottom left of the screen. Note the document number. In this example it is 51056000231. We will have a look at this document soon. We now look how to post the payment to the vendor into the system. Once the invoice has been posted, we need to pay the vendor. This will debit our account receivables and credit our cash account. To do so, go back to the user menu. Type the transaction code F-53 in the command field or click on Logistics. Then Materials Management. Then Accounts Payable. Finally, click on Post Outgoing Payments. Enter the document date. Click on the icon right of the highlighted field. In the calendar, double-click on today's date. Second, enter the account number to be debited. The system is configured so that the bank cash account is 113300. Enter this number in the amount field. Third, enter the amount to be paid to the vendor. Type the amount from the invoice in the corresponding box. Fourth, enter the account to be debited. The account number corresponds to the vendor code in the system. Type B01 in the highlighted box. Next, click on Enter. This will check the consistency of all the entered information. If all required information is correct, and no amount is left unassigned, you are ready to save. Click on the Save button. We have now completed the payment process. We now enter the production process, which will transform the raw materials purchased into finished goods ready to be sold. The first production process is the conversion of plant orders into production orders. The MRP precedes the production process by creating plant orders, but before production can start, the raw materials need to have arrived in stock. Once they have arrived, production can start. Go back to the user menu. Enter transaction CO41 or click on Logistics. Then Shop Floor Control. Then Order. Then Create. Finally, double-click on Collective Conversion of Plant Orders. This transaction has already been configured. Simply click on Execute. Select the plant orders you wish to convert by clicking on the gray square left of the row. This part of the transaction allows you to prioritize some productions. In this example, we only have one plant order. It is for 1,000 boxes of nut muesli. Once the plant order is selected, click on the Convert button. At the bottom of the screen, a message will provide production order number created from your plant order. Now that it has been transformed into a production order, your manufacturing plant will start producing the 1,000 nut muesli boxes as soon as the production of all the previous orders is completed. This is the last stage of the production process. At the end of the production process, the actual yield of a given production order has to be confirmed. Perhaps incorrect recipes or machinery breakdown caused losses. It is at this stage that the actual production cost of the product will be calculated. Let us see the transaction. Return to the main menu. Enter CO15 or click on Logistics. Then Shop Floor Control. Then Confirmation. Finally on Enter for Order. Enter the production order you noted. If transaction CO41 is the last transaction you entered in SAP, your last production order will already be written in the field. Then press Enter. All the options in the window have been adequately set. You only have to enter a yield quantity equal to the plant production quantity. In the ERP sim simulation, there are no losses. Then save your entry. To manage your production processes, you can use the production schedule report. Enter ZCOIS or click on Information System. Then on Shop Floor Control. Finally, on ERP Sim Production Schedule. As you can see here, our nut muesli production has been confirmed. If you already have this window opened, you would need to refresh the report. Now let us see the inventory report using transaction ZMB52. You can see that our inventory of nut muesli is now 1,000 units. Again, if this report was already opened, refresh to see the changes. Now, let us see the stock and requirement list for the nut muesli. Use transaction MD04 window that you left open. Product XX, F01, the nut muesli, is still at a stock of 0 and still has a production of 1,000. Now let us press the refresh icon. Now that the production has been confirmed, the system can officially enter the actual stock created by the production. We now have a stock of 1,000 and the completed production order has been removed for the nut muesli stock and requirement list. As you can see, in SAP, there are many reports and tools to find the information you desire. Transaction CO15 creates several accounting documents. Use transaction FBO3 to display documents. Then click on Document List. To minimize the number of documents in your search, enter today's date in the posting date. In the form, enter today's date. The date format is year-month-day. Press the Tab key to change fields or use your mouse cursor. Enter today's date again. Click Execute to generate the search. As you can see, today our company only completed the production process, but during your exercise, you may encounter several more documents. Double-click on the document number field. To know if you clicked on the proper document, the two first lines should be finished goods and total finished products produced. You can see that the inventory of raw materials has been credited and the cost center for raw material consumption has been debited. We now proceed to the first step of the sales process. Our objective is to sell 1,000 boxes to client 8107. First, we will create a sales order. At the beginning of the sales process, the customer calls the sales representative that enters the information into the system. Take note that this transaction has no impact on the general ledger. This is done using transaction code VA01. Enter VA01 in the command field, or click on Logistics. Then on Sales and Distribution. On Sales. And finally, double-click on Create Sales Order. Now, enter OR in the order type field. OR stands for Standard Order. Enter your sales organization. It is your team letter written twice. In this example, we are Team X, so it will be XX. Then enter the distribution channel in which your order was placed. If you are unsure of the possible distribution channels, click on the icon right of the field. If necessary, click on the yellow bar to have the details appear. We now see 5 different types of distribution channels programmed in SAP. In the manufacturing game, we only use distribution channel 10, 12 and 14. In this example, we know that client 8107 is a hypermarket, so double-click on hypermarket. Then, click the green check or press Enter. In the second screen, enter the client number, 8303, in the box sold to party, and in the box shipped to party. Enter today's date. In the box PO number, enter anything you want. Something has to be entered, but it is not important for our exercise. In the table in the bottom of the screen, enter on the first line 2 specific information. First, enter in the material column your product code. In this example, it is XX-F01. Finally, in the column called Ordered Quantity, enter the number 500. Click on Enter to validate the entry. Finally, click on the Save button to finalize the transaction. Notice that, in the pop-up window and at the bottom left of the screen, a sales order number will be provided. It will be useful to note this number for future use. In this case, the order number is 297. Notice, the above transaction has created a new document. Let us check how the stock and requirement list has changed. Remember that you can open it by using transaction MD04 and then entering your material number. If necessary, click the refresh button. You now see that a customer order has appeared. The next step consists of preparing the picking and delivery of the sales order. This is done using transaction code VL01N. The transaction involves creating the delivery in the system, doing the picking and delivering of the material, and finally confirming the good movement. In the system, this is done in one SAP transaction. Type VL01N in the navigation box and type Enter, or click on Logistics. Then press Sales and Distribution. Then Shipping and Transportation. Double-click on Create Outbound Delivery. In the first screen, enter the shipping point. It is your team letter entered twice, here XX. And enter the sales order number created during transaction VA01. It is likely that the sales order number already appears on the screen. SAP uses the number of the last sales order created during your session to fill the form. Click on Enter when the information entry is completed. A new screen will appear. The bottom of the screen contains a table with many columns. You need to enter 2 information on the first line. First, find the column called Picking QTY for picking quantity. To find it, scroll the table to the right using the scroll button. Enter 500 in that column. Second, continue to scroll to the right until you find the column called SLUC for storage location. Enter 02 in that column. When you are done, click on Enter. Finally, click on the tab Post Good Issue. It may be counterintuitive, but do not click on Save button. In a real company, the sales rep will typically click on Save and the delivery document created will be saved in the system. The warehouse worker will then have to retrieve the document in the system and click on the tab Post Good Issue once and only once the actual delivery can be confirmed. In this exercise, we do not need to wait for that confirmation. Hence, let's click directly on the Post Good Issue tab to complete the transaction. There will be a delivery number appearing on the bottom left of the screen. Note the number, it will be useful later. Open the window with the stock and requirement list and click on the refresh bottom to update the list. Notice that the customer order for 500 boxes has disappeared while the stock level has been decreased by 500 and is now at 500 boxes. The requirements still at 1000 now exceed the level of stock. If we were to rerun the MRP calculation, it would generate a new requisition for 500 boxes. Also, you might notice that the delivery triggers entries in the general ledger. So let's look at the new financial document created. Go back to transaction FB03 to display the GL documents. Generate again document list for the relevant dates and to find the new document. To limit the size of your search results, enter today's date in the From and To field. Click on Execute. If you just completed VLO1N, the transaction will be the first atop the list. Double-click on it. The Post Good issue creates a new financial document. The finished product account is credited. It is credited by an amount corresponding to the cost of the goods sold. Conversely, an inventory change account is debited for the corresponding amount. Net profits remain unchanged. The next step in the process is the creation of the billing, which is sent to the customer. Once the material has been shipped to the customer, the accounting group creates a billing document into the system. The creation of the document changes the general ledger. The bill is then shipped to the client. We examine here how to perform this task into SAP. Enter VF01 in the command field or click on Logistics. Then Sales and Distribution. Then Billing. Finally, on Create Billing Document, enter the delivery number in the first column, called Document, on the table in the middle of the screen. Click on the Execute button, represented by a clock. The system withdraws all the information relevant for the corresponding sales order and delivery. Note the amount for the next transaction. Here it is €2,060. Then, click on the Save button. At the bottom of the screen, a document number will appear. Let us go see what is contained in the document. We will use transaction FB03. A sales revenues account is credited only when the bill is created. Conversely, an account receivable is created in the name of the customer for the same amount. Notice that the sales revenues of €2,060 exceed the cost goods sold reported in the previous transaction, which was €1,240. Net profit is accrued to the company. The last step of the process is to post the customer payment. This ends the sales process. The customer has received the bill and has sent his payment. The last step in the process is to post the payment into the system. The posting will create an entry into the general ledger. The transaction code to post the payment is F-28. Type it in the command field or click on Logistics. Then on Sales and Distribution. Then on Accounts Receivable. Finally on Post Incoming Payments. First, enter today's date in the Document Date box. Click on the calendar icon. Then double-click on today's date. Second, in the Bank Account box, enter 113300. This is the account number of the bank cash account to be debited. Third, enter the amount corresponding to the bill, in this example €2,060. Fourth, enter the account number of the account receivable to be credited. This corresponds to the customer number, 8107. Once the data are been entered, click on Enter to validate. Click on the Save button to complete the transaction and do take note of the document number of the created document. We will now use this document number and the transaction FB03 to view the newly created document's content. This document will appear in the document list. To better understand the FB03 transaction, you can view its section in this video. Notice that the cash account has been debited and the account receivable associated with client 8107 has been credited. This now concludes our manufacturing cash-to-cash process. Cash was spent to purchase raw materials, finished products were produced and cash profit returned in the company's account after selling those finished goods.